We are so happy that you can join us today as we make history by hosting the first ever Asia Pacific jury events for the Packaging Innovation Award here in Thailand. Today, you will hearing from Daniella, Souza, Miranda, our Global Marketing Director from Dow, David Luttenberger, Global Packaging Director at Mintel, and lead judge for this year's Packaging Innovation Award, as well as representative from the PIA judge event. Our keynotes and the panel discussion will be taking place in just a short while, but to kick things off, allow me to extend a warm welcome and invite Dow Thailand President Khun Chai to address us.
Good afternoon, everyone. สวัสดีครับ สวัสดีทุกคนครับ I understand that there's someone we also broadcast also good afternoon for the one online. Yes. In fact, I'm trying to combine between Thai and English today, so my speech will be a little bit mixed. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, and honorable guests, global judging panel for Packaging Innovation Award, and a member of media. On behalf of Dow, I extend my warm welcome to all of you at the Dow Thailand Bangkok office. Today, we gather at the Thailand Inspiration Center for the inspiring sessions with the Distinguished Packaging Innovation Award jury. Together, we will explore the transformative power of packaging innovations, a force that drives human progress and shape our world. The Packaging Innovation Award, now is the 35th edition, is one of the industry's longest running independently judged awards, a legacy that began over 3 decades ago, have continuously celebrated the creativity that fuels our industry. The PIA is a testament to the enduring spirit of development, and this is aligned with our collective commitment to sustainable innovations. This year, Dow Thailand team is proud to be part of the event that is hosted in the Asia Pacific region for the first time, and we appreciate your participation today in the exclusive session with our global judging member who are also packaging industry leaders. Let's unpack key trends, exchange ideas, and propel the future of packaging toward technology advancement, sustainability, and the brand experience together. Thank you. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you, Chai. There is no doubt that Thailand truly embodies the dynamism of the Asia-Pacific region, and we are delighted to be here. Veterans of the Packaging Innovation Awards will have noticed that this year's edition features a longer nomination period, which is warmly received by the industry, allowing us a greater participation from the business across the globe and making this one of the most successful editions ever. Please allow me to invite Dow Global Marketing Director Daniella, who will take us through a deep dive into the packaging innovation and Asia's role as the hub for innovation.
Thanks, Simon. I feel important. I have the music, I have the samples here. If I'm in a TV program that I will be selling stuff. So bear with me there. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Thanks for joining, the ones that are here and the ones that are watching us. We just finished this morning the selection of the winners of the 35th edition of the Packaging Innovation Awards. So During this week, we had 18 global leaders in the packaging industry analyzing this more than 300 submissions of packages, analyzing the samples and taking the decisions through different criteria to find the best of the best in the packaging industry. So I want to start by thanking Dan. Some of the judges are here, some are watching us. I want to thank them for their time, their expertise, and the commitment to the packaging industry. And I also want to thank every one of the participants who submitted their innovation, every one of them with the 300, because everyone is doing their role in really advancing innovation. I mean, it's much easier not to innovate and not to do anything different than to take the risk of changing something and doing in a different way. And that's what we want to recognize with the Packaging Innovation Awards. As was mentioned before, that's the longest running award across the industry, independent, and I want to reinforce the independent because that's important. Although Dow is the sponsor, we do not judge. None of the judges are from Dow. We do not participate. We do not interfere in any of the decisions. The decisions are completely material agnostic. And of course, you don't need to be a Dow customer to participate. So why we're doing this then? I mean, if we are not awarding to our value chain and to our customers, why it's important for Dow to sponsor an award like this? Because we believe that innovation is the only way to bring progress to the packaging industry. As a matter of fact, to any industry, but especially to the packaging industry. So we believe that that's our contribution to the industry, to bring the best of the best, to improve people's life, and at the same time advance in sustainability. The judge has evaluated based on 3 important criteria. So you'll be hearing from them later on the panel. We look at technological advancement, we look at sustainability, and also looking at an enhanced user experience for all of us as consumers, our experience with the different packaging. So through this process, they had a look at the future. And I look at the future, and what are those kind of small waves, ripples of innovation that in the end, when combined, will have a big wave to transform our industry for the future. This is not done by chance. I mean, this is done by the work of all of us and recognizing who are the change makers. I want to highlight one change maker specifically, which is the winner of the Diamond Award of our last edition in 2022. So you can see it here, right in front of me. So that's a solution from P&G. And what that solution brings is for the laundry capsules, there are things that are really relevant. The safety, especially child safety. You don't want your kid to open that, to touch that, to eat that, definitely not. Accessibility and inclusivity in terms of who can open and how easy that is, this experience, and at the same time, sustainability. And they found a solution with this click. You can test it later to see how that works. Very simple, yet very clever, and driving a solution to the marketplace. So that's the kind of innovation that we are looking for. Both Amy and Chatai mentioned that for the first time, we are also doing this award hosted in Asia after 34 editions. So you may say it took too long for us to be here, and you're right. But the thing that's really interesting also is that not only is the first one that we're doing Asia, but 40% of the submissions, the participation was from Asia. If we look back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's a completely different story. So it shouldn't be a surprise to any of us that Asia is in the center of innovation. And the next slide I show, from a output perspective, if we think about the supply side, Asia represents almost half of the world production and manufacturing. So from a supply perspective, that's a great opportunity, tremendous opportunity for us to innovate. From a demand perspective, it's also a great opportunity because you have the rise middle class here, you have the rapid urbanization here, so you have both supply and demand in your favor, and the innovation engine to unprecedented levels. I'm always surprised when I come here because the velocity that you take from a concept to a prototype to a commercialization is parallel to no other. So things are not standing still in Asia. I want to share some of the examples of how this is evolving. That's one example for Australia. Again, one of the previous winners in our Package Innovation Award. Unfortunately, I don't have the sample here, but it's very simple. It's a granola pouch. You eat it, you utilize it, and in the end, you roll it, stick, and it goes directly to the curbside. Again, simple, clever, very implementable, and thinking about recyclability from the beginning. The second example I want to share from GNP is this glass-like PET bottle that brings all the positive points about glass. So why do people want a glass bottle? It has the luxury feel, it has a differentiated look, and they found a way to manage that with PET by having an overhead layer that connected with PET protects from oxygen as an oxygen barrier, and it gives the same look and feel of glass. So again, innovation combining science with a barrier experience and delivering to the customer something that will be glass-like, so that will be good for the eyes, and at the same time it's much lightweighter, so it's easier to transport, it's less expensive also in terms of logistics, and it's virtually unbreakable because it's a PET bottle. None of this is possible. I mean, we talk about the innovations and importance of thinking differently and defining different products, but none of this is possible without what we call a materials ecosystem. We can't avoid our responsibility, our shared responsibility of members of this value chain in turning the linear economy into a circular economy. That's a big change in our industry, not only in the plastics industry, but across the different industries. Is the responsibility to think from beginning to end, and from end to beginning, how we transform our products. So here we show how each of the members of the value chain needs to participate for this value chain to be really effective in the way it operates. And I would say there are basically two very important pillars. One, that is designing for recyclability. We talked a bit about this, is when you are designing from the very beginning, you think about the end. You have the end in mind. And in that case, your end is not an end, because your end is to make it in a way that you can reutilize and you have a second, third, and fourth life. And the other pillar is, once something is recyclable, your job is not done. You have to make sure that this is effectively recycled, so that you have the process, you have the technologies, and you know how to operate to transform back that plastic waste, or for that matter, any material waste, back as a raw material, back as a feedstock in the value chain. And we in Dow believe that we have to work in both sides, and I want to show some of the examples of how we are doing this, and especially how we are doing this here in Asia. So starting with innate, I mean, that's one of the resins that we brought forward. I have some examples here with Libai and Mengnu in China, and also with Lyle Corporation here in Thailand, where we were able to transform complex structures with different materials, different layers, into a monomaterial structure that's ready to be recycled. So major change in terms of how we design our resins and how our customers design the structures, how the brands present their structures. So everybody in this value chain had to adapt to the new way of making things so that we can effectively recycle them. Another example that's also here is with Kimpai tubes here in Thailand. So the Thailand group, a shout out to the Thailand group that worked to make that happen. So they're designing a fully recyclable monomaterial tube that replaces what we all know has been in the industry for quite some time, that can be used in this case for toothpaste, but also for hair conditioning or hand lotion, for many different applications. And last but not least, I mean, we know e-commerce has been a emerging trend, and with non-stopping side. And with e-commerce growing, it also grew the amount of packaging. Every time you receive something, there's all these layers of packaging and tape and inserts, all kinds of materials to get there. So this, also one of the previous winners in the Packaging Innovation Awards, is a way to replace all this material, 40% reduction in terms of the weight, and deliver exactly the same functionality. You open very easily here. I will not open, not to damage the sample, but you open very easily here. You have the product inside, and then curbside, easy to be recycled. So lots of thoughts in different parts of the value chain and in different parts of the industry to turn what once was not recyclable into recyclable material. But as I said before, that's not enough. That's the first step in that direction. The second step is to really turn it into a product again. And this also, I mean, we've been signing different partnerships across the globe with mechanical recycling, advanced recycling, different partners of the value chain to guarantee that we have the supply to really turn plastic waste into circular products. This was a signature here in Thailand last month of the biggest and first of its kind partnership for Asia that will bring us 200 KTA a year of circular products coming from plastic waste. We're extremely proud of how we're building this. Will be a combination of mechanical and advanced recycling to really bringing what's recyclable into recycled, into a product to the customer that closes the loop. I can really reinforce enough the importance of those engines of both innovation and sustainability to really make the change in this industry. It's really the collaboration across all in the value chains, downstream, upstream, and across industry partners that take us forward and give us this progress. So, and just as crucial is also to identify and recognize innovation in our industry, because it's really the innovation and every innovation that counts towards human progress. So with that, in closing, I really want to look forward to see how we work together to keep changing and innovating and bringing progress to our industry. And I trust that the Packaging Innovation Award can be, and will be a key element in really defining the packaging of the future of packaging. So thank you.
Thank you, Daniella. Thank you, Daniella. And we are all indeed excited by the many industry shaping possibilities that have emerged from and will continue to emerge out of Asia Pacific. Over the course of this week, you have heard from Daniella that our jury members have been worked very hard, poring meticulously over every submission. They have spent days away in thoughtful deliberation, generously giving their time to help casting the spotlight over many, many innovations that will shape our future of the industry. Leading this excellence jury panel, and a man who shares great passion for the power of innovation in shaping human progress. I would like to invite on stage David Luttenberger, Global Packaging Director at Mintel and the lead judge for this year's Packaging Innovation Award. David will tell us more on just why such a award progress like the Packaging Innovation Award, will continue to play an important role in helping us achieving a sustainable future for generations to come.
Thank you very much. Thank you. First of all, I must say the Dow team, the Thai Dow team, the ambassadors, you all have taken this event to a level that I couldn't imagine. This is my 12th year as the lead juror for this, and every year it just gets better and better and better and more meaningful. During the short video that we showed, I don't know if you could tell, but the judges, each of us had this like little glint in our eye. We were smiling. There is no place we would rather be than right here talking about the innovations and the future of packaging. And I know that to be true because today is fellow judge Tim's 20th wedding anniversary, and he is here instead of home with his wife. So that's just a testament to how much we enjoy this, how much we learn. And we all think we know a lot. But when it comes to the interaction with our global colleagues and looking across categories and disciplines, the amount that we learn here, what we learn, what we share, we're going to use this throughout the year. And to have an organization like Dow, who really doesn't participate, but the benefit of them being a sponsor and being associated with this leading edge technology globally is significant. And we could not raise that bar of package innovation, of packaging technology, without the support of such organizations like Dow. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today about how we go about this process. But first, think about this. Packaging can be a theater. It can create a story. Daniella told you about some of the technologies in the past winners, but just think about all the products you've come in contact just with today. Think about the story that it told you when you bought it. Was it the right size? Was it the right price point? Was it safety? Did I know that it clicked when it closed so my child couldn't get into it? That's the story of packaging and how it interacts with you as a consumer and how it makes your life better. This is the technical side of what we have done the past few days. We call ourselves packaging geeks. We love this. We like to look at the science. We like to look at the technology. And behind each of these are the criteria by which we judged more than 300, a record number of entries this year. We dug into these. We looked at how they were manufactured, where they were manufactured. Was there a new material? Was there something just very subtle about it that made it that next leading edge technology, or just improved on a technology that we maybe saw 4 years ago as a Dow Award winner, and now we see it coming to that next level. So that's the science and the technology behind what we've kind of done with this. And we looked at all that, and then we broke it down into the diamond winner. That's the winner that met the most criteria among all of those and just rose to the top. And then we have other categories. You don't have to do everything to be a great package. You can have an element of sustainability, an element of package innovation, an element of consumer experience. But we want to recognize all of those levels. But we have to begin to think about packaging a little bit differently as well. While we really enjoy the science, it's really important for us to understand that packaging and the story of packaging is about so much more than just the science and the technology. I've been in packaging 33 years now, and for many years, this is the way brands and package manufacturers and raw material suppliers, this is how they thought about package innovation. Well, we've got an installed base of capital. We've got this filling line. We know how this package works. So if we just tweak it just a little bit, it still works for us. But we have to begin to think about that story of packaging. And there's another side to this. We really have to understand how the package and the product work in harmony and look at it from a consumer perspective. Look at it from that end user perspective. They don't look at the diagrams and the die lines and what percent of recycled content's in there, or the moisture and oxygen vapor transmission rates. They want to say, it keeps my product fresher. If it keeps my product fresher longer, I'm going to spend less money, I'm not going to waste food. So we really need to look at innovation from the perspective of, how does this product and the package work in harmony to make a consumer or end user's life? You fill in the blank. Why did you introduce this product? Why did you use a specific package format or a specific material or a specific component? Why did you design it for compostability or recyclability? And you fill in that blank with, it makes the consumer or end user's life easier, faster, more convenient, safer. Makes me feel like I'm stretching my purchasing dollars. There's a confidence to this. It's telling the story of my life and how I can buy products and packaging that fit with me, my lifestyle, my family. Do I live alone? Do I have 12 children? Do I have 16 cats? How do I live my life? And how does this technology and science come together to tell the story of my life manifested in the form of a package? When I look at packaging these days, and I travel the world constantly talking to raw material suppliers, converters, brand owners, retailers, design agencies, and I say, whatever package you are developing, the reason behind that is not only because it fits on your packaging line, or you're trying to take that next step in technology or sustainability, but you're trying to make an emotional connection with that end user or that consumer. And those emotional connections I like to look at are right here. What's practical? I look at it, I need this bottle of water, it's convenient. That's a practical, emotional connection that motivates and drives my purchasing decision. Rational. Well, it's very cheap. It's only a few baht. I can afford it today. So that's the rational value proposition behind packaging. Physical. It's robust. It's going to make, I can throw it in my backpack or my briefcase. I can take it on the airplane. It's got a safety mechanism. I know that it's going to withstand the rigors that I put it through in my life. Connected packaging, we're seeing so much more of that. The use of QR codes, RFID, NFC, artificial intelligence, anyone heard of that? AI is going to do more to not take evolutionary steps. It is going to do more to revolutionize the entire world, the entire packaging supply chain, from design to sourcing to production to trace and track to safety to consumer engagement. It's going to engage consumers at a greater level, both somewhat scary sometimes, but also very entertaining, very informative, moving us from an element of fun to functionality, adding value to our life by being able to gain information or entertainment in new ways and more meaningful ways. Economics, again, I can afford it. It's maybe a little out of my price range today, but I'm going to indulge. If it's got a good value proposition, if I see the value in a larger size or a little more exclusive brand, there's an economic value proposition. Social, environmental responsibility. I am wearing the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals logo. We have to think about inclusivity, about diversity, about water and soil conservation, about responsibility to air quality, marine life, to all people. We're seeing packaging today that's being developed to be more inclusive, to be more responsible to the earth, to the people, to our planet. So we have to look at packaging in that much greater context. And then finally, this irrational emotional connection, that's my favorite. Because that's just like, I see this package, I don't need it, but it's cool and I really want it. So it's just that playful side. It doesn't all have to be about science and technology. It's about what makes me happy. We saw some entries in this year's competition. We're looking at it, it's like, it's got no real purpose, but I'm probably going to go buy it because it's fun and you want to share it and you want to post it on Instagram or WeChat or WhatsApp and share it with your friends. And that's okay. We need that sort of irrational emotional connection as well. That's the big picture that has I see things in packaging. There's science, there's technology, but we always have to take it back to that end user, to that consumer. How does it make their life or their use occasion, again, You fill in the blank. Easier, faster, safer, more convenient, makes me feel more confident, saves me money, or just kind of makes me feel good. And that's the way we think about packaging, is just kind of makes us feel good. So again, thank you all very much for being here. Thanks for the Dow team. And now I'm really going to grill my fellow judges on some really good questions about what they saw in this year's competition. However, we are not going to tell you who won. Because that is confidential until Dow makes the announcement at Tokyo Pack of the winners later this year. So we will talk about trends, we'll talk about some things that we saw, but when you ask us who won, we're going to dodge that question really well. So anything else I've forgotten, Amy? We good? All right. Want me to introduce everyone? Okay, so now we've got some chairs coming up here. I'm going to introduce or ask Danielle to come back up. Fellow judge Gautam, Laura Buen, and Tim Sykes from the UK. The other thing that before I start that I will say today is our jurors are here today to represent their position in the packaging value chain. They are not here to represent the brand owner, the converter, or whoever company they may work for. So they're speaking for the industry, their position in the supply chain, and their views and comments will be based on that, not those of their individual companies. All right? Certainly as we've talked about, we looked at 300 entries in the past few days. We went through hundreds of these packaging samples and did what I call packaging forensics. We ripped these things apart, we poured them out, we spilled them on ourselves, but we really broke them down to see what's behind them, what the trends are, and really what they're all about. So we've had this front row seat to these innovations, but I want to ask the judges here, just first of all, tell me who you are, what your position in the value chain is, and then we're going to talk about a little bit about, what are the big pictures that you saw in the overarching trends, the emerging trends this year. So, Gautam.
Starting from me. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. And my name is Gautam Bhattacharjee. 25 years in the industry. I've worked in converting industry, different kind of brand owning industry as well. And it's been always a pleasure to come back to the PIA Awards. So do you want me to add my aha as well, or?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and tell us, what'd you get most excited about?
I think what makes us most excited about this is first really seeing the entire horizon of innovation that's happening in the packaging. And packaging is not a job of an individual entity. It's a job of the partnership across the value chain partners, which makes an innovation incredible. Now, what makes us feel really good is that some of the things that we have awarded in the past were a small trend, but now it's catching up and becoming a wave of trend that's transforming the industry. So we're going to go more detail into that, but I think some of the ahas that we saw, some of the things we recognized in the past, awarded them, are really becoming a trend across the industry, across the globe, which is fantastic.
Laura.
Laura Buenabad, this is the 4th year that I'm part of the judging panel. It's always an honor to be invited. I have been working in the packaging industry for more than 20 years in the converting side. Super excited always as come back to this event. I think one of the aha moments is that we keep being surprised about seeing things that are technologies that maybe already exist, or elements that are known but now are being applied in a completely different way, in a different application. And even though it can be seen as simple, it actually can transform a completely new industry and the way they approach packaging. So that has been very refreshing in these entries this year.
Tim.
Thank you also for welcoming me to Thailand and also to this event. So I'm brand director at Packaging Europe, and essentially we're a platform to educate the whole value chain about all of the strategic areas and the innovation opportunities that can help packaging stay fit for purpose in the future in such a changing world that we're living in. I've had the honour of being part of the jury for 6 years now, I think. For me, the aha moments, well, occasionally you get that really big moment where you see an innovation which you really understand is going to redefine a whole category. They come around maybe once or twice a year. And maybe there were things this year, but as David said, we're under strict instructions not to say too much about it. But then I think there's also, we come to contribute to the jury, but we also come to learn from each other and to see such a diverse range of innovations also from regions that we're not so familiar with. And coming from Europe, I'm always, and increasingly, as Daniella says, impressed by how dynamic the APAC region is and how much innovation is coming from Asia, particularly around connectivity and digitization, which is obviously going to be something that defines the next century, and where your region is very much in the lead, and we have a lot to learn.
Thanks. Out of all the entries we looked at this year, probably even all the entries we looked at last year and the year before that, and probably for the next 10 years, sustainability, or what I like to call environmental responsibility, is just sort of ingrained now. It's entrenched. It's part of the DNA of packaging. Every package has to have some element of environmental responsibility to one level or another. But I'd like to ask the judges again, what did you see this year that really gave you that sense that sustainability is embedded? Like you said, Gautam, we've seen things that we gave awards to 4 or 5 years ago, but now we're seeing it as a global trend, but we're now beginning to see that even next level. So talk a little bit about some of the trends and innovations in the context of sustainability.
Yeah, so one thing that we have experienced that you cannot sell sustainability to consumers. So sustainability cannot be managed separately. It cannot be bolt on to an innovation. Sustainability has to be built in. So we need to start designing the product from the beginning with sustainability designed in. And what we are seeing more is that as people are thinking about this holistic consumer experience, they are considering all the elements of sustainability to the design state itself. So let me give some examples, right? So when you earlier saw the different kinds of packages that are made out of composite material or multi-layer material, we know that it's hard to recycle. But we have to still deliver consumers the experience when she's shopping. The pouch that stands on the shelf need to look beautiful. When she is cutting it, pouring it, using it, disposing it, need to give that experience. Consumers are not ready to compromise the experience just because it's more sustainable. So what we have seen in the past, that we have multi-material to mono-material conversion happening, but the performance of some of the material are not there. So consumer need to compromise in the experience. But what we have seen this time is that people have been really pushing the boundary, even if it's a single material, to deliver all those and add on more features even on top of mono-material. So what it does, it allows people to migrate from a non-recyclable composite material to mono-material, keeping the consumer experience same or even better, and you can dispose it. Now, as we are seeing, that same material is used not just in 1 or 2 industries, across all breadth of industries. So potting soil to the plant, chemicals, from pharmaceutical industry into the foods. So we are seeing the materials are being developed on a mono-material chassis that cut across all types of industries. Now what it does basically is that it's creating a scale for this material. So now people will have an interest to collect it, reprocess it, sort it, and actually produce another material that you can reuse as a PCR into the packaging. So we are seeing basically that some of these material transformations are going to redefine how the industry operates, creating scale, better price structure because there are more availability of these, and of course keeping the consumer experience uncompromised.
Laura.
I'll focus on also the idea that sustainability is driving very strong innovation in the industry. When you are talking about the example of moving from a package that includes a lot of different materials, and we want to find a way to circularity where we need to target on a specific stream, whether that stream is polyethylene, paper, metal. What we are basically looking for is that one single type of material now has to behave as the combination of all the previous materials that is replacing. So we are asking one material to have the properties and the behavior and the processability that all the other components were offering. So we are now really driving significant material science to be able to add those attributes, those properties into that material, to be able to process in the assets, to be able to go through, offer the protection to the product, the distribution challenges, all the way to also having to modify that package that is now monomaterial in a way that is truly going to be collected, reprocessed, so that we truly drive that circularity. And so all those elements make that every step of the value chain is being forced to really, truly challenge the status quo and do a lot of innovation in their own process, so that all together we can drive the solution to the planet that is actually going to be the sustainable solution.
Laura, I want to throw a question out to you here. We've got package manufacturer, we've got brand owner, Dow, material science company. You are 2 steps removed from that consumer. I've talked about the science and the technology, but also about that emotional connection to the consumer. As a material science company, how can you support brands, retailers, package manufacturers in a way that will help them meet those needs for consumers?
We really see that our role is to enable them to provide the sustainable packaging by creating materials, innovating in the materials in a way that enable the whole chain to move that way. So we mentioned some of the examples, and I did in my presentation, on designing resins that will be able to replace multi-layers and then propose solutions. They're monomaterial. We explored that quite a lot already. But it's not only that. I mean, also in our R&D, we spent quite some time developing resins that we call boosters, that what they do is that they enable more and more for us to include recycled content in the final formulation. So we started with 10%, 20%, 30% recycled content if you go back to some of the previous packaging innovation awards. And now you're seeing packages with 50%, 70%. And that's possible because you're also changing the science of the virgin resin, that is the rest of the package, so that it can incorporate all this amount of recycled content. So there is science in both sides, both in the recycling side and also on the virgin side. And we've been talking a lot about circularity, but really it's not either circularity or carbon. I mean, having carbon, reducing carbon emissions is more and more a need in our industry and across all the industries. So when we look at plastics, in my case, versus other materials, we know we are already in a good competitive advantage in terms of the amount of emissions that we have from plastics versus other materials. But that's not setting us quiet. I mean, we're doing quite a lot as a company to decarbonize our own operations and to move to a world where we would be net zero. So I just want to go back to a big announcement we did in the beginning of this year with the first ever across all the industry site that we were building in Alberta that would be complete net zero in terms of the emissions. So 3 million metric tons of polyethylene that will coming out of the site that is zero to very low carbon emission level. So that's something impressive. That's a $7 billion investment that we have in the next year. So I really think that that's the material portion that will enable the whole industry to meet both circularity and carbon needs. And that's not the only ones. I mean, you mentioned water, you mentioned other resources. I mean, we have to look at sustainability through holistic values. If we choose one material because it checks one mark and then we create another problem, then we didn't do the full job.
Yeah, that holistic look is really important. Like I said, that's why I pointed out the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals, because that does look at it holistically. Myself, I personally believe that by the end of this decade, carbon footprint, total carbon footprint, will be the single metric by which all things sustainable are measured, because a ton of carbon is a ton of carbon in Thailand, in Brazil, in China, in Germany. It's a metric by which we can adequately and fairly compare things and not continue to say, well, this material is more sustainable than that one because it's recyclable, or this material is more sustainable than that material because it's lightweight or because it can be recycled. So let's look at that big picture, that holistic picture of total carbon footprint, and really get a handle on what's not just good, better, and sometimes even less bad, and get out of that conversation of more sustainable or most sustainable, and just look at that carbon footprint. So, yeah. So, going down the line here again, I talked about how excited I am about AI not becoming something we see in the packaging industry. I'm telling you, I wrote a 2024 trends piece about all the areas where AI is already in packaging throughout the supply chain. I'm excited about it. What are you three excited about? What's the next new big technology, or where do you think the trends are headed? Putting them on the spot.
Well, on generative AI specifically, I will say, the ability that it gives our industrial designers to create a lot more ideas, being a lot more efficient, the ability to do content creation in a way, whether it's for being very specific on the communication that we give to the consumers on the labels as we add that information to our packages. Even within the innovation side, for our engineers and our science to be a lot more efficient on their work, we no longer have to spend time writing a report trial or, the minutes of the last meeting. Gen AI can do that for us. And also analyzing a lot of the market insights. Sometimes the consumer insights are so large and there's so much data that being able to have a quick way to concise that information, it only drives efficiency on how we innovate around packaging.
Cool. Tim, I'm putting you on the spot there, buddy.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I preface what I'm about to say with agreeing completely with you, and you'll see the context about the carbon footprint being crucial. And as you said, we're all packaging geeks, so we're kind of excited about everything that's happening. So I'm going to pick out one thing and not necessarily say it's the most important, but one thing that's very interesting at the moment from a technological standpoint is what's happening with paper. Now, the paper industry, our host Dao may not be too happy of the focus on this, but is seeing a big opportunity with the fierce attention to plastic that consumers and journalists and some politicians are showing. So they're seeing opportunities to extend the functionality of paper by adding kind of smart coatings, putting it into new applications that couldn't have been done before. But going back to my initial point, we really need to think about, is this the best way to package a particular product? And in many cases, going to paper, it might look nice, it might make people think it's greener. Sometimes it's not. You need to think about the impact. It's going to be more weight, probably more energy in production. Sometimes it's the right solution, but not always.
Yeah, and I'll build on what Tim said. I firmly believe that we should not get stuck in the mentality of we have to live without plastics. We have to eliminate and reduce plastics. We have to look at every material that we have available to us, and we have to optimize it. We do not want to live in a world without plastics. I'm telling you, it's going to be a miserable world, but we need to learn how to optimize it, to use it wisely. So, yeah. Any last?
Yeah, I think if I built on what Laura mentioned, what we are seeing is that the artificial intelligence is going to redefine the innovation work process, right? So if you look at today, traditionally you develop a package based on consumer requirement and customer requirement and the trade channels where you're going to sell. You launch it, but then you keep optimizing it over multiple years. But where AI is going to play a significant role is once those requirements are given, you'll have the boundary conditions set, the choice of material set, the carbon footprint set, very well guided by the AI. So you design it right first time, and you don't need to optimize. So you are kind of, if you look at 5 years or 6 years life cycle of a packaging that exists on shelf, instead of optimizing it every year, you have optimized something from the day one itself. So you are actually, over the whole life cycle of the package, have saved a lot more carbon, a lot more efficiency, better delight for the consumers from the day one till the particular package survives. So I think there's a lot that's going to happen. The second piece, what we are seeing is when you develop a package, you need to really understand how it's going to behave with the product, right? So we have to run a lot of testing which are regarding the product material compatibility. You know, the over period of time, what's happening to the polymer material as it comes in contact with the product in a certain cell condition, like if you are selling in Thailand, 45 degrees C, 100% humidity, what's happening for the 2-year shelf life. A lot of that predictability will be way forward because AI is going to guide us from the data set that we already have. So I see AI is going to drive things significantly differently, and we just to be hungry learner. Learn, experiment, and keep pivoting the process.
I'll share something, and I can't tell you who's developed it. I have seen life cycle analysis models that are using large language models and predictive learning in LCAs, where they are looking at such things as price volatility, availability in a certain region. Is there a recycling infrastructure in not a region, but in a local municipality? And then taking those inputs and putting it into a predictive LCA model that doesn't give me one answer, but gives me different models and projections based on price, based on availability, based on the availability of any type of material, what's going to be the better choice at this point in time and 6 months from now, not relying on LCAs that have data that was gathered 18 months ago and was outdated on the day that it was published. So I'm just so excited about that. So
can I just build on
yeah,
that?
please.
And just a final comment on the collaboration as well. I think we talked about collaboration before. If we look at how innovation was done 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I do see a big change in how we are operating today across the industry and across the value chain. Innovation used to be in my own lab with my own team, coming up with something. I was cooking in the kitchen by myself, and I came with a dish to serve. Now it's everybody in the kitchen, everybody adding a little bit of this, and then we come with a dish that already marks a lot of different points because I know what each cook likes to do and what each cook is bringing to the table in terms of the special spice or ingredient or so far. So that's a big change. And I think with AI and the access to data, that's getting even stronger because there is no reason for you to kind of protect yourself and your data. I mean, the data is out there. So why not join forces sometimes through the value chain, sometimes even across the industry and think, what if we this future and innovate together and advance together and find sometimes answers even before somebody poses the question, you are ahead of yourself. I think that's a big change. I saw that reflected in the Packaging Innovation Award as well, and I see this changing the way we innovate towards the future.
So collaboration from a value chain perspective, from each of your positions in the value chain, AI aside, how is that collaboration getting better? How is it being approached? Particularly today in a world where we're maybe more disconnected because we're not always physically next to each other. So,
no, I think there's different elements. I mean, the PAC Studios for us is a big hub for collaboration. Hopefully you all had the chance to visit one of our PAC Studios as well. Those are our centers of innovations. We have several across the globe. And one thing that we developed recently as well is you don't need to be physically at PAC Studios to innovate. You have the PAC Studios Live and the ability to kind of put your glasses and innovate with us. We're running samples, we're running process, testing different structures, testing different materials, and you are participating from a distance and influencing the way the design goes. So I think it's finding those models that may be physically together, maybe virtually, but still with the same end game in mind and what is the objective we have.
Gautam, you are between the raw material supplier, the converter, the retailer. You're right in that middle there. What do you need? What do you see in that value chain collaboration model?
I think value chain is something which is getting more and more critical and more important in the whole innovation process, right? Because you cannot now innovate in an isolated window. You have to have that partnership across and hand-holding throughout as you innovate, right? Now let me give you an example. Like, as a brand owner, you can manufacture a shampoo and detergent, but you don't manufacture package. So without the packaging converter, without the material supplier that allows the packaging converter to convert into package, you just cannot innovate the best package. But then you cannot just stop there. I think it's getting beyond, because you need to now work with the collection mechanism that exists in that particular country. You need to work with the recyclers, the sorters, to see, okay, when consumer uses the pack and disposes it, how it's getting collected. Is it easy to be collected? Is it to be sorted? Is it to be reprocessed? So we need to bring in now these additional value chain partners together and build an overall innovation ecosystem that will help us design it right from the beginning, but also optimize for each of the value chain plays that are there in that particular country where we're going to launch the innovation.
Laura.
I will add to that, on top of investing on that holistic system, also on taking part of the conversations with those that are establishing standards, guidelines, regulation. If we are all in the same room having the conversation in the short term about what is technically possible, what is commercially possible across the supply chain, and drive for informing that part on what we can do today, what can be done in the future, establishing the standards that also are harmonized so that we are not developing something different for different specific regions of the world, but really driving the scale. If we can all align and be part of that conversation, it will only accelerate the innovation and the delivery of the solutions.
Tim, you and I are sort of semi-neutral in the supply chain, but what do you and I look across all areas, so what are you seeing?
I'd like to apply this to a more kind of concrete example of flexible packaging, which has been one of the most challenging areas to deliver sustainability. And so, as the others have said, and I agree with every word I've heard here, collaboration has been key in accelerating the job that the value chain has to do on innovation and design for recyclability, and both in that kind of like Dow does with Pack Studios, bringing the partners in the value chain together to figure out all of those complicated nuances to develop, recyclable monomaterial solutions that actually work in concrete applications. And then, for example, in Europe, we have a platform called C-Flex, which is bringing the whole value chain together, working on figuring out every single detail of the circular economy for flexibles with the goal of creating that universal circular economy in flexible plastics. And within that, I think we can applaud ourselves as an industry for the progress we've made. And bringing it back to the competition, David, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, there were things that we saw in flexible packaging with converting difficult materials into monomaterials that are recyclable, or starting to put recycled content back into to packages, which we thought were extraordinary and really important. This year, we're seeing the same kinds of things, and the extraordinary has become the ordinary. And as geeks, maybe that can sometimes be a bit disappointing, like, oh, we've seen this before, this isn't exciting. But that in itself is an exciting story, in fact, because things that we really needed as an industry are being spread very widely across all of the regions. In fact, it's not just the kind of economically more advanced regions. We're seeing examples from sub-Saharan Africa, lots and lots from Latin America, for example. So you've got this design for recyclability part, and I'm probably talking for too long, so you can send me a sort of signal if I have. But apart from that, you've got you can put recyclable content onto the market, and it still has a bad environmental impact if it doesn't get collected, sorted, recycled, and then put back into the packaging system. So I think that is the more complicated area for us now, and it's the area where collaboration again is really, really important. And that means the whole value chain continuing to talk together about what do we need, how can we align strategically, and then bringing in other stakeholders, extended producer responsibility, so that you're kind of generating the funds that make circular materials move around this cycle, recyclers, municipalities, and then I think regulation. We need to have regulation which sets the bar quite high, ambitiously, and creates goals that all the members of the industry know that they have to aim for, gives clarity to investors so that they have the security to create the infrastructure that we need to have a circular economy. And that's something that's beginning to happen in regions around the world. And we've also got the United Nations Plastic Pollution Treaty hopefully coming to a positive conclusion that also kind of sets targets for every region to aspire to. And I think it's very important that business, the whole value chain, continues to engage with that, because bad regulation isn't going to get us where we need to be.
I mean, from my position as the Global Packaging Director at a consumer insights company, I've seen a real paradigm shift in probably the past half dozen years, particularly from material science companies and package manufacturers not wanting to just go to Gautam and the brand owners and say, hey, look at our cool innovation. But they are interested in what the consumer is buying and why. And they're not just developing package innovations, but they're developing packaging solutions that allow the material science to meet the package converter specs, that meet the brand owner specs, that resonate with the consumers to motivate and drive their purchasing decisions. So it's been a real delight to see that downstream participation in collaboration and understanding the consumer, not just your converter client or your brand owner client. So that, to me, that's been really, really positive. I want to thank you all, and I want to open it up if we have any questions here from the audience. Again, we are not going to tell you who won today.
Unless you pay us.
Yeah, well, and any questions? Happy to take some questions. How are we on time, Amy? Okay. Any questions there? All right, I'm going to follow up with a couple questions that I think are pretty cool here. You know, we've seen technology advancements as a key category this week. We've talked about AI. And what are some of the ways that, you know, across the value chain, and we've talked a little bit about AI in design, AI in predictive maintenance. How maybe are your organizations looking at AI, and what elements of AI, any of you, from material science to package converter to brands, you know, what most do you think, or how do you think it's going to bring a greater element of efficiency, of, you know, information, of projections for your organizations? Danielle?
Yeah, I think I can add to something that Laura mentioned before on the productivity side. And I mean, sometimes we look at a company like that with 30,000 people and say, well, if we all knew what we know together. I mean, because some pockets of the company know something that sometimes does not extrapolate to the other geographies, other functions. So AI gives you the chance to have this kind of repository of answers and troubleshooting, I mean, your operations, troubleshooting how you're developing products. I'm facing this challenge. What are the answers we already had in the past, and what are the answers out there for that? So it definitely accelerates your speed to market. So it's a productivity gain internally, definitely a productivity and a knowledge level setting internally, but also accelerate the way you work with your customers and down the value chain, to your point of understanding not only what my direct customer wants, but what the end consumer, the end user wants, and then building something from there.
From the CPG perspective.
Yeah, I think AI is going to help us. Like, we are gathering data. So it's like big data probably will become mega data, and I don't know beyond what's going to come, right? But when you gather all the data, how can you really innovate it right for the consumers, considering the whole end-to-end carbon footprint, right? Now, for example, like a packaging person, I can always develop a package which is best performing with the least amount of material, keeping the consumer delight equal or better. But then when we look at the total carbon footprint, which most of the corporates are setting their goal, like the 2025, 2030 goals were all around plastic recyclability, but most of the corporate have raised the bar and going into net zero goals. But if you want to go to net zero goals, it cannot be just product, packaging, or supply chain. You have to look at the holisticness. And this is where the power of data and AI would help. So, for example, like we are trying to learn that if you are washing your clothes on a 60 minutes wash cycle with a hot water, how much carbon footprint you really generate. That's probably way higher than the plastic footprint or the transportation footprint you have. But once you get the data, the question is basically how AI can help us design the product differently. So can I shorten the wash cycle? Can I switch from hot water to cold water washing? And then probably new forms of product that probably will need minimum amount of package, so you don't need to ship water. And we have several things that we have been launching in markets to test and learn how consumer adopts to these new product forms and how that's going to impact the overall life cycle, carbon footprint generation that a product category would do. And I think AI is going to accelerate a lot of that learning because you have the data and it will be analyzed and there will be recommendation that coming out of the data analysis, which is going to help us pick the right innovation for the right market, for the right consumer segment.
Laura, I've seen some great examples of organizations, package manufacturers, using AI for predictive maintenance on machinery to say 6 weeks from now, there's going to be a defect. So if you want to prevent that downtime, you can stop that machine now or between runs. As a package manufacturer, how do you think you're going to be using AI?
Well, one of the ways we are focusing on doing it, or I think all the converters can focus on, is also on demand planning, on inventory management, leveraging the data analysis on not only predicting when material is needed, but also when my customer is going to need material, and then the retailer and so on, everybody in the value chain, so that there's less even food waste. There's a huge impact of food waste in the climate change, and so how do we make sure that we are only making the right amount and there's not inventory that maybe goes spoiled or is too long in a distribution center and then food is spoiled? Because we obviously do our part on designing a package that is protecting for as much as possible, but then gets to a point where you really want to balance that related to food waste.
For those of you here, you may have AI vendors knocking on your door every day saying, you got to buy my AI app, you have to buy this AI tool. And I get asked a lot, how do I know which one I need? And I say, what information have you always wanted, but you don't know where to get it or how to get it? What do I do with all the information that I have that I don't know how to analyze because there's too much of it? What information is out there that I have that I don't know how to put into action? And what else is out there that I didn't even think about? So you have to understand what information you need to understand how AI can help you with gathering, analyzing, putting it into action, and giving you other outputs, other scenarios to help you make much better decisions. So, how are we doing on time? Another 3 hours? You good? Yes, ma'am. Question. We have a taker a mic there? Yeah, thank you.
I have two questions. First question, what are some of the emerging trends in packaging and special plastic within the APEC region? And how is Dow positioned to capitalize off them? And the second question, how is this award can reshape the packaging industry to be sustainability? Understand? Okay.
Yeah,
Danielle,
I can.
yeah.
And on the APAC, maybe I'll count on you as well because you're closer to the APAC region than I am. But based on what we've seen this week, and of course by coming here at least twice a year and working with the regional team, I think the trends in Asia are not very different than the trends that we mentioned in the beginning that we're seeing in the different geographies. I think that what differentiates and sets Asia Pacific apart is first that the demand, that the growth it requires. I mean, it's the rising middle class, it's the urbanization. I mean, the needs in terms of convenience are showing more and more. So that's a trend that's not new, but that we're seeing in a very accelerated pace here versus some of the other geographies that are more mature and more expected in terms of what the growth would be. And the second one is when we talk about the manufacturing, we're having half of the manufacturing in Asia. What that means, and knowing that packaging usually happens when you are producing the product. So that's the place where you can really influence and change the game in what material you're using, how you're using the material, how you're rethinking the way you're producing your packaging and bringing packaging and content together. So I think it's this speed to innovation that sets Asia Pacific apart, and how we believe that we can participate as some examples that I did. I mean, it's really working. There's no example that I shared that we was us working alone. I mean, all of them is either with a customer or with a brand, with an upstream partner, or all of them, because that would be really the way to get there. So the more we cross-check and we collaborate across all of us, the faster we'll get to the market in a market that is growing more than anybody else in the world.
Yeah, I think what is important for us to recognize that Asia is probably a geography where the flexible packaging formats are the best in class in the world, right? And why? Because if you look at the spectrum of consumers you probably have markets like Japan, which is most innovative. A lot of the companies have 70 to 80% of the product that gets sold in flexible pouches or refill pouches. But you also have categories, the countries where you have small packs like sachets, which are a big part of the play. So you have the entire spectrum of the packages where you want to have the consumer experience keeping same while you're doing this material migration to more sustainable chassis of material. So what's happening with that is because, you can probably take a refill pouch, which has a nice pouch so that consumer can refill from pouch to bottle easily. But earlier, these were all multi-layer laminates with pouch, spout made out of completely different material that you cannot put in any recycling stream. But what we have seen over the years that first people migrate from multi-material to mono-material. Then they started working on the fitments, which is the spout, the cap, that is also made out of same material. So now this whole thing can go into a particular recycling stream. But then, okay, you converted a non-recyclable material to recyclable material, it doesn't get collected. So what? So this is where comes the value chain partnership in the Asia. Like some of the pilots that we are learning in China, for example, we have other brand owners that are joining hand, the recyclers that are joining hand, Dow is there. What we are doing, we know that no one wants to collect flexible packages because they're so lightweight. So the people that collects bottle, they earn more money because they're heavier. But who would collect flexibles because it's such lighter? So we have to take this partnership approach across the value chain, bringing people together to see, let's see, can we collect flexible packaging? Can we get enough volume that can be interested for a recycler to now collect and reprocess? So there's a lot happening in the region across the different entities and the value chain partners and this unique role they're playing, making this region probably one of the most happening region and best in class when it comes to flexible. And I think this year's, the jury process, we have very humbling learning when, we kind of debated, it's a mono-P pouch, right? We have been seeing in Asia for the last 5 years, 6 years. Why should we give it award? Without recognizing that technology takes time to travel, consumer habit takes time to develop. And now when you see that some of that material is being used in a completely different context to ship milk where the refrigerated chain of supply is not available, with a mono-P structure, or somewhere in Latin America packing coffee, you get to understand that, wow, like we started to see some innovation that's now traveling across the geography, across the region, taking a span of, time to make that whole industry shift.
I think you're very close to give some spoilers. I was worried where you're going.
And I think, give credit to Dow. Events like this accelerate that global transfer of technology because you've got, a package manufacturer from the United States, and she gives her opinion or input, and a brand owner from China or India says, I've not seen that, let me take that back. And that transfer of technology on that base level, let's look at the material science, let's look at how we can convert it. Do we have to change over a packaging line? Is it a drop-in solution? I think events like this just accelerate the time at which it doesn't take us to move technologies, to advance these technologies region to region, category to category, pack format to pack format. So, yeah.
It's a real kind of pooling of knowledge, isn't it? And obviously it's secondary to our task as judges, but also very important that we're mutually educating and then hopefully going back to our regions and networks and sharing what we've learned.
We've talked about what we've learned across the different categories, and I showed, the 3 primary categories by which we judged all the entries this year. Tim, do you see a concentration, and maybe we should take sustainability off the table, but did you see a concentration of technologies, of innovations in any one of those 3 categories that may have been different? Has the emphasis of innovation maybe shifted from technology to end user or end user to whichever? So,
I mean, I probably would say sustainability.
It's got to be. Yeah.
And what I'd say is probably that, again, comparing the experience of judging now to 4 or 5 years ago, I remember quite often we would see things that were quite impressive from an innovation standpoint, but where we said, on the other hand, this is really bad from a sustainability standpoint, and we would take it out of the competition because it might be meeting some end user requirements, it might be attractive, it might have that irrational pull, but you can't do that and make things worse. And we hardly ever saw that this year. There may be one or two where we think that's questionable from a sustainability perspective, but I think that's testament again to a trend where people are making sustainability just a license to operate. It's a fundamental, basic thing that you have to do, even if it's not the focus of the innovation that you're presenting.
Danielle, let's bring it back to the APAC region. What are some of the things that you saw this week, not as a judge, but as you walked around the room and you listened to our conversations? What are the things that you saw, some of the observations you made, and how is Dow positioned to be that more valuable player, partner in a supply chain to address those trends?
Yeah, I think in terms of what I've seen, a lot of the sustainability in the middle for sure. So I think we're all consistent on that. There's no innovation. There was nothing that was submitted that didn't have a solid business case in terms of sustainability, either in terms of circularity or carbon, or hopefully both of them together, but looking at this in a holistic manner. And I think that that's more and more, again, something that probably wasn't in the center and wasn't in the center in the Asia-Pacific submissions 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it's definitely spread out. And this is a game changer. And how we can participate, I think I talked a little bit about this in terms of the partnerships down the value chain, but also I want to re-emphasize the partnerships up the value chain in the transforming the ways, the second part that you were just mentioning, because it's like you can do all this effort to make something recyclable, but if in the end of the day you don't have the infrastructure to collect that, to sort that, to clean that, and to turn this back into a raw material, you didn't do the work. I mean, it was good effort, but you don't get the final star, as my teacher would say in the past. So I think that that's the part that we are working really hard to do, because we had this linear economy getting efficiency for a very long time. So improving in terms of yields, in terms of productivity, efficiency in how we operate, and now we incorporate a lot of other players like waste managers and recyclers. I mean, they are new to our value chain. They were just incorporated in the value chain. We won't have, day one, the same level of efficiency and productivity. And we all have a role to play to bring that to the same level of productivity and yield. So that's a major change, and that's a major need of investment from all of us in the value chain, and also regulators. I mean, as you were saying before, that's an essential part. I mean, we need to regulate to level set what is needed in the different countries, what is needed in the different locations, so that all industry raises together to the new challenges that we have.
As a director of global marketing at Dow, what takeaway from this, from again things you saw and heard, are you going to go back to Dow and say, we've got clients here, this is the thing we need to prioritize. We're doing it, but we need to do it better, or we're not doing it, and this is something new we can bring to the Dow clients?
I think it's the communication to the end user. I think there are many things that we are doing that we believe we're doing the right thing from a technology standpoint, from a sustainability standpoint, but maybe it's not translating well to how the consumers are taking the final decisions in the shelf, choosing between product A and B. So I think it's this communication. I think AI may help. I mean, definitely working with the brands will help, but it's how me, Daniella, as a consumer, know when I'm buying, if I'm buying something that has a lower carbon footprint than another, that is addressing sustainability in a better way. I think this information is probably not getting where it should, so it's something we need to work as a marketing organization.
One of the categories we probably haven't talked about much, but we're beginning to see more and more package innovation, is in health, hygiene, medical, pharmaceutical. We've had some award winners in the past. for operating room utensils, that sort of thing. Are we seeing more of that? Should there be a better emphasis on that? Tim, what did we see this year, without revealing the winners, that specific technologies maybe that we were impressed with?
I guess there are two areas where, in pharmaceutical packaging, for example, you're seeing a lot of need for innovation and opportunities for innovation. One is, back to our old friend, circular economy. It's one of the most highly regulated areas in terms of safety, and extremely important that you have product protection, great barrier properties, which makes it much harder to go to simplified materials. And yeah, we saw some interesting examples of succeeding in bringing forth barrier properties in mono material, blister packs, for example. And another is, it's really important that people take the right medicine at the right time, compliance with their prescriptions, and understand what they're taking, etc. So I think we saw some nice examples of communication on pack, making it more accessible, easier for people, who may not see so well, to get the basic information or to access further information through connectivity. So yeah, I think that's a particularly interesting market for packaging innovation.
Yeah, I know one entry that we saw, down-gauged or eliminated a total layer of material. They maintained that barrier and actually gave it better barrier, but then also ensured the safety and compliance of non-accidental dosing, making it easy to access, but also making tamper evidency, so much better. And we had a couple entries where our juror from India just looked at it and said, this will change the game in the OTC medical market for packaging. He says, this is a game changer. It has to win. So, yeah.
What was the name again? Way too much here. I think this is going way too far.
No, but in the past, we have seen the past few years quite a few pharmaceutical medical applications with keeping in mind that the end user may not be the consumer. It may be an emergency technician driving an ambulance. It may be an operating room technician, but looking at using films that have less migration and maintain sterility when you open them, just making them easier for our operating room tech with gloves and a mask and a gown on to access and hand to a surgeon. So we had some very interesting entries in that area. So, further questions? We got a couple more minutes, maybe. Yes, ma'am. Can we get a microphone, please? Thank you.
Thank you. May I go back to the one you mentioned about the category, the 3 category of the packaging, the gold, platinum, and things like that. Do you think among these 3 categories, do you see participants like prioritize one over another, and that will impact the evaluation process?
Can you hold your mic a little bit closer, please?
And the prioritization of each category had any impact on the process of the evaluation?
I think, as we mentioned, sustainability has become table stakes. It's just you have to have it in some form. It doesn't have to, lightweighting, source reduction, post-consumer recycled content, design for recycling, eliminating, 1, 2, 3 layers of material. So that goes across every end use category, probably almost every entry we saw, with perhaps some of those that I would put into that irrational, emotional connection, which are just there for fun and are probably way over packaged, but I don't care. But it does, I think it is impacting the material choices that brands make, that package manufacturers are working on, the material science companies are developing, because again, we have to be the most responsible that we can, whether it's glass, metal, paperboard, rigid plastics, flexible plastics. We have to give those brands every opportunity to pick the right pack format, the right material, in the right region of the world, in the right category for the right product at this moment in time, meaning there is no one total solution. but we have to, and we saw that in this year's competition, that sustainability in many forms just went across every category. We did have a winner this year that used a recently developed new material in a new category, and you would look at it probably floating down the street and say, what the heck is this? And we all looked at it, and once we understood the technology behind it, it's like, oh yeah, this flexible plastic pack with this additive is the best choice at this moment in time because of this particular technology. So I think material choice based on, again, all those appropriatenesses, time, category, region, maybe even the established ability to recycle the infrastructure in a municipality, that it has a huge impact on material choices. Anyone?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we come every time for this jury is because I think we learn more than what we could give as an expert, right? And two things that really inspired me this time is a lot more people are doing consumer education through packaging. So people are clearly communicating how to dispose, how to recycle this. And if we are not educating our consumers right, I think a lot of the effort the value chain partners will take will be not fruitful. So there's a lot of things that's happening on consumer education. The second piece, basically what we saw is some of the material that we have seen in the past in the academic papers are coming to life in real application. And then what it does, basically, once you see some of the people creating success with those advanced materials, there are more people adopt it. So what is very uncommon this year, I'm sure 2 years later when we're going to meet, we'll see there are a lot more categories adopted it. So those two things, which is the hope for the future and the consumer education, is really what has been pretty inspiring.
I was just going to say, if I understood the question correctly, you're also interested in whether one of those three pillars of the competition was more important than the other. And the answer is no. We judge, there's no hierarchy in sustainability, technological advancement, and end user experience. If something is terribly unsustainable, then that's going to disqualify it. But there are some that really impress us, where the most significant area of innovation may be something to do with the end consumer's experience, but it also has to deliver in sustainability and maybe it doesn't do something that's extraordinary in sustainability.
Laura, did you want to?
But I will add that, one of the reasons why we have the diamond winner is because it's a package that actually does well all three. It's when you really are leveraging technology advancements to deliver on sustainability innovations and you are really considering the experience of the consumer, then you have a package, specific for that region, specific for the technology that exists. But if you are able to do all three well, then it deserves a recognition. It sets a new standard. As my colleague was mentioning, the idea is to inspire. We may have a unique solution there, but then the rest of the world that maybe thought it wasn't possible, and in some cases it's us. We see something and it's like, oh, I didn't think that could be done, but obviously somebody's doing it, and now the rest of the world can follow and can create that demand and that scale.
Tim, Laura, Gautam, Daniella, I really want to thank you. I especially want to thank Dow team for hosting this, but most importantly, I want to thank all of you for being here today, to listening to us, hearing what we had to say, sharing with what we saw in the past couple weeks, and hopefully putting into action some of the things that you may have learned here today. So thank you all very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, David. Well, that brings us to the close of today's session. And on behalf of all of us from Packaging Innovation Award, I want to say a big thank you for all of you who joined us today, virtually and in the room. I want to also give you a heads up that in August, we will be announcing the finalists of this year's award. And we prepare to head to Tokyo in October for the official award ceremony. Until then, take care, stay safe, and remember, every innovation counts for human progress. Thank you very much. Thank you.